Shalom. Today's the 23rd, and I want to just touch on the concept of faith. Now, Hebrews 4 verse 6 to 8 emphasize the idea of entering into Yahweh's rest, and the author of Hebrews emphasized the fact that you need to focus on today while it is still today. Don't harden your heart. So as if there's a urgency to make that decision, or an urgency to change your heart or change your mind so that you will not miss the boat, so to speak. Now, salvation is connected to the idea of Yahweh's rest. It's also connected to the Sabbath day. It's connected to the seventh day of creation. Now, if you look at the big picture prophetically and the 7-day creation, day one is where everything started, in the beginning, Bereshith. And the end, the Taf, that's the Aleph, the beginning. The Taf is basically the seventh day. And the Taf is entering into that. Now, what we know about the letter Taf is that it's a letter associated with a doorway. It looks like a chet and an hay. So you enter in through it. But the Taf is also connected to the idea of a yoke. So you need to carry a yoke or to pull a yoke and perform work, like an ox plowing the ground, for example. And that's for the purpose of sowing seed and for new sprouts to come into new life. So that's the whole idea of what this walk is about. And the end goal of that is to pull your yoke until the end, so that there can be a harvest and the new sprouts. That is your inheritance, that's Yahweh's inheritance of the nations coming into the kingdom, entering through the door of the Taf, the door of your labor. Now, we've seen that previously in Torah portions, where counting the people, lift up your heads, is an appointment, but it's also counting people's contributions. So Yahweh only regard people who are actually adding value to the kingdom. He count them as important. If you don't add value, He doesn't count you as important, because you entering the kingdom is not for your own benefit. Just like Yeshua, who's done everything during His first coming, was not for His own benefit. It was for the benefit of others. In the same way, walking in the halakha of Mashiach Yeshua is for the benefit of others. It's for the benefit of those that need to come in. So everything you do in this life pertaining to Yahweh's word is to plow the ground, to sow seed, to water the seed, and to be part of the process of the harvest, to bring people into the kingdom. That's the main idea. That's the end goal, the Taf, the seventh day, the rest. And after you've done that, there will be a time which is called the day of Yahweh. And that's what we discussed on Saturday, when we studied Yom Teruah. Between the two Yoms, Yom means day or time. It can also be translated as today. It's a time frame. Now, between the two Yoms, Yom Teruah and Yom Kippur, is the only two festivals that have the word Yom in it, that has the word day in it or today in it. And that's the bracket or the period that needs to be moved through. And that's also symbolic of moving through the barrier or the membrane of time of that day period. Now, time is connected to the fourth dimension, where we are entrapped in three dimensions in the physical, and we want to access the higher dimensions where Yahweh is. Now, to do that, we need to move through the fourth dimension, move through time, and move through the two time periods starting with the word Yom. So we need to cross the Jordan which starts with Yom Teruah and ends with Yom Kippur. And that is the time period of the Great Tribulation. So that's also symbolic of this letter Tav, because Tav also means death. And the river Jordan means, the root word means to go down. Go down where? Go down to the Dead Sea. And the Dead Sea is symbolic of the realm of death, where the strong force of the Jordan will pull you down into the realm of death, where you will not enter into life, will not enter into his rest, unless you are with the covenant people, with the Levites, carrying the Ark of the Covenant. So we need to be in covenant with Yahweh in order to travel and enter through this doorway called the Tav, called the 2 Yoms, the Yom Teruah and Yom Kippur period, also known as the Great Tribulation. So all of that come into play. So entering the rest is not a joyride. It's not something, oh, I just left Egypt, I'm wandering through the green grass and flowers and beautiful things, and then, oh, over there's the promised land with a beautiful flowery gate, and I'll enter in there, the birds will be singing, it's just going to be glorious. No, it's not. There's a wilderness in between Mount Sinai and the New Jerusalem, and there's the gate, the Tav gate called the Jordan, that we need to move through. And prior to that, there's the wilderness, that is this life in a lower state, with all the enemies, with all the dynamics and everything you have to face, the internal enemies like we discussed before, which is your emotions and your flesh, and the external enemies who want to take your birthright from you. And the birthright is associated with the message of the covenant, the message of the firstborn, who need to make sure that the message of Yahweh, his covenant message, is transferred from one generation to another. Now, sometimes it fails from transferring within a single family. For example, you can be a God-fearing person, you can have children, you lead them in the ways of Yahweh, you teach them the ways of Yahweh, and when they become adults, they reject Yahweh because they now experience like their prodigal son. Oh, all the lovely things out there, all their friends in the world, they want to explore those things, and then they went off and they go and do that. So we have to wait patiently for those prodigal sons and daughters to come back and openly receive them back into the house if they repent. But in saying that, there's a lot of people who will come in that are not your physical blood, that are from other families that we need to cater for and allow to enter into the gate, into the household of Yahweh. Beautiful picture. So unbelief is the thing that's underlyingly emphasized in chapter 4. It's because of unbelief. Now, the Greek word for unbelief also means to be not of faith. Now, if you go to the root word, and in Hebrew, it's the word emuth, and the root word of emuth, which is faith, is the word aman. It's emun, and then aman is the root word that means faithful. Truth is the word amuth, and its root word is also aman, which is faithful. So both truth and faith share the same root word that means faithful. So being disobedient without faith is rejecting the truth and rejecting the message, the gospel message of salvation. And the gospel message of salvation explains the process of salvation that start with Egypt, step 1, that travel through the wilderness, step 2, and then enter into the promised land, possessing the land, step 3. And that's the final, or the 3 processes, the 3 steps of the process of salvation. Now, we are saved by grace through faith, leaving Egypt. The next step is up to you. Are you going to remain faithful? Are you going to remain obedient to Yahweh's word and his truth? That will give you the purpose in life to still aim for the promised land. Some people lose faith, they die spiritually in the wilderness. Other people turn around and they go back to Egypt. We need to move forward, and that's the message of the author of Hebrews. He wants us to not harden our hearts, to keep on pushing because we're not there yet. And the third and last step is to enter through the gate of the Tav, through that terrible time that's coming into the promised land and then possess the land. So there's a lot of things that we need to be mindful of, and it's coming to the surface through the teachings of the author of Hebrews regarding salvation and the process of salvation, and the pictures he's drawing on from Israel leaving Egypt and entering the promised land, and the carcasses falling in the wilderness and not entering Yahweh's rest because of unbelief and disobedience. So let us not harden our hearts. Let us have faith, push forward for our own benefit, but more so for the benefit of others. I hope you have a lovely day. I'll speak to you soon. Shalom.